This is called Healing for Addictions. And I'm going to translate it for you, David. Please listen to this. The title of today is called Healing of Addictions, Inherit or Acquire. Addictions, repeat addictions. It's a word that is part of our life. Addictions. How do you create addictions in the man? There is a word from the Greek. Coveling, the word coveling, you translate it. You are like bundle, chained to something or somebody. That's the root of the word chain. The addiction is a chain. It's a habit. It's a custom that came part of our life because we're repeating one another one, and in conscious way we start doing it in our life. Paul says in Romans, in the book of Romans 12, verse 13 to first, change your main to think so you can change your way to live. Why Paul says that? Why we have to think our way to think so we can change our way of life? Because that's part of man, something common, something normal. The first thing that men think in their life are thoughts. Change your way to think so you can change your way to live. Maybe you're living right now that road that you are building up vices, addictions, bad habits. But today, you have the possibility to change and stop to that. To stop, like Americans say, immediately, and turn your eyes to Jesus. If you are feeding yourself with things that don't belong to God, I will invite you so you please come back to God. If your body is asking you alcohol, giving to drink rivers of living water. Maybe, Brother Bernardo, I'm so sinner, so miserable, that if this is out of my hands, I can control it. You are not the first one. You are not the only one. You are not the first one that goes through this. But I'm going to tell you today, according to the Word of God, in Ecclesiastes, in chapter 2, verse 2, you never hear from God that anyone who trusts in God will be defrauded and let down by God. And you and I won't be the first one. Claps to the Lord. How do you break an addiction? How do you break a bundle? The first thing we have to do is turn back to God. There is no other way, my brother. They want to change the brakes. The names of that chain breaker is Jesus of Nazareth. From words from the theology. That's the word hobbling. That is translated as chain, wall, be bundled to something or somebody. And the word doulos, that means being a slave of Jesus. Maybe you are living in a hobbling right now. Maybe you're living full of change, of nudes. Maybe you're trying to close your eyes to pray and you start looking at sins, mistakes you made, like St. Paul says. You are living on the flesh. You are living deep in the flesh. Ampho. But you can go and take another step. And then you are becoming a slave of vice in the flesh. And you can turn yourself and be a slave of Jesus. asking God that will be your Lord, your Savior, that can give you your life to Him. Maybe you're looking at happiness in things that don't belong to God. That you can enjoy, like the song of Macarena. Give it joy to your flesh. Giving joy to your sense, to your feelings. But the true feeling is in Jesus, in God. Maybe you don't understand. Maybe you don't understand. You're that person that even with the same finger you point to somebody else. Maybe your wife want to go to the group, prayer group, to church. Maybe you want to go to watch soccer, football. Whoa, you just live praying. You don't understand maybe what I'm talking about. Just open a little bit of your heart to God. Listen to the word of God. In Revelation 3:20, I am at the door and I'm knocking at you. If you listen to my voice, we'll open and we'll go through. And we'll have dinner together. My brother, God is a gentleman. God is a gentleman. You open the door a little bit so He can do the job for you. He can work in your interior. So the gospel can grow on you. Every time you're reading, it's growing, it's growing, and growing. You maybe don't notice until you start producing fruit. You're going to go from the world of flesh, of the bundling, of holy, to have the life in the spirit. And this vice, you know why it's so hard? Because you have to die to yourself. And to die hurts. It's hard to die. People that they have nearby death, the death is the most painful moment. You are sitting down right here. You always wanted to be a faithful husband. Years ago, you met a woman and make you feel of lust, and you are becoming unfaithful to your wife. Maybe you feel repented, but you still don't change. Every time you think about it, it hurts because you need to die. And it's hard to die because it hurts. It's difficult to give up something, to renounce. It's hard to renounce something that is giving you satisfaction, human satisfaction, fleshy. You have to go through that pain. You have to go through that renunciation, resignation. So after you went through that, you're going to live for Jesus. And then you're going to live a life that you might not know before. Because you have to give your life to Jesus. Like Pope Francis says, you need to come back to that encounter with Jesus, personal encounter with Jesus. People that are just thrown in a glass of water. You know what I'm talking about. I live it by myself. That transition, and I live it every single day. Maybe you see me preaching right now. But when I was 15 years old, I denied my faith. Because I was raised in a non-Catholic crib. Pentecostals. I always belonged to that church. My mom used to belong to Assembly of God. And it happens. My father and my mother, they got separated. When they got separated, I was 7 years old. My dad left, and my mom stayed with 7 kids by herself. Very hardworking woman, fighter. She worked for all of us. But when I was 15 years old, when I became a teenager, I became rebellious and went out of my hands, of my mother's hand. The word teen in Spanish comes from adolescent. That means dolor, means pain, that it hurts. It's a rebellious time. Nothing is satisfying you. You want everything. And I fell on that. And that being rebellious, start hanging out with bad friends, make me complain, make mistakes. After being an evangelical Christian, to live a worldly world, fleshy, vices like alcohol, like drugs, vices like women, make me got lost totally in the world. I touched the end of the world. I was drug addict. I gave call to the demon during 3 years and a half. Dedicated myself. I was practicing Satanism. Even they were trying to kill me. They didn't know what to do with me. Trying to get out of my neighborhood because they didn't want me. So I had to move to Bogota, Colombia. And I live in a neighborhood in Bogota until I started living at El Cartucho, that is a back ghetto neighborhood. And I lived there for like a week, drinking, smoking crack, you name it. And the moment I was there, I always wanted to change. I always wanted, I was trying, but I couldn't. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to stop alcohol. And I was finding a friend and I had somebody to tell me, let's go have a drink. Because it's always, you have that wish, that desire to come out of it. But your will is very weak. Like Mark 14 says. But the Spirit of God, is strong, but the flesh is weak. So you have to pray so they won't fall in temptation. Even in that street, God touched my heart. And I start thinking about the parable of the prodigal son. And I thought, how many workers in my mother and my father and living in this sin. So I decided to come back home, come back to my mother's house. But my life was the same. Maybe I was repented. I wanted to change. But that hobbling was still there. That habit that I was created, that it was full of vice. I was trying to change and my life was worse. More vice, more alcohol, more prostitution. And one day I was sitting on a bar. So I was drugged, full of alcohol, 3 days drinking. I was only 21 years old. And that moment I remembered about God. And I test God. And I have a challenge for you. I challenge God. If you really exist, help me. Because I don't want to die like this. I don't want to like this. If you really exist, help me. And it happens. Minutes later, after saying that, a missionary came along. A preacher came. That broke the limit. He didn't care about come to that place at the bar when I was drinking to preach me the word of God. He didn't care that I was drinking for days or drugging myself for days. I was even filthy. He didn't care. Went and he preached the word of God to me. And I opened just a little bit of my heart to Jesus. And the Lord gave me a different life for His glory. Maybe you have a winning. Maybe you are not sitting in a bar right now and full of alcohol, whatever you're saying. But you only need to open a little bit your heart to Jesus. Accept that challenge so you can break the chain. This man, coming back to this man, he taught me how to be a Catholic Christian man. He never had an experience at the Catholic Church. And he told me, after I was trying to change, after I will surrender myself to Jesus, and I will break all this chain, I have to confront myself against my own humanity. I will have to confront myself against my own reality. And you're going to raise your hands, and you're going to praise, and you're going to glorify the Lord, and you're going to fall in love with the Lord. When you leave that door, you need to find yourself. You need to find yourself with your own self, with your own reality, with the things that you need to face up in order to break that chain and have a winning. You are not going to come out alone. You're going to come all excited maybe. But you need to be sprinkled by Jesus. And after you want to be different, you're going to change, but you have to. And maybe you're living right now a big sin, big tights. But God can do everything new. Brother, I'm not going to change. Maybe I won't be able to change. If you fight with the force of God, God will give you the victory, and He's going to break that chain. And you will have life, and life in abundance.